Make your winning move today and bet at MyBookie. Use promo code Gators and claim your deposit match, redeemable up to $1,000. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. And Gators Breakdown is proud to partner with America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh. Go to HelloFresh.com/GatorsFree and use code GatorsFree for free breakfast for life with active subscription.
Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC and at Gators Breakdown coming at you. Hey, you know I wasn't going to go long. That 2024 schedule drops. You know we're going to be right here on Gators Breakdown talking about it. And we already knew the opponents, but man, now we finally get to see the lineup of games, and it's a doozy. We knew it was going to be tough anyway. But man, it's the way it breaks out. It's pretty tough for Florida. First half of the schedule, a little more manageable. The last half of the schedule, not so manageable. But we'll get into it right here on this episode of Gators Breakdown. We'll go game by game. I'll get my thoughts. I'll try to hop into the chat, get your thoughts on a lot of the schedule as well, but hit that like button. Subscribe to Gators Breakdown if you haven't done so yet. Thank you for joining us live right here. If you're watching us live on YouTube, doesn't cost a thing, just really helps us out a whole lot. Just hit that like button. Really, really helps us out. Live, replay, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Subscribe as well right here on YouTube, your favorite podcast platform. All that goes a long way in really helping us right here on Gators Breakdown. And of course, hey, schedule talk like crazy going on right now on the Gators Breakdown Plus Discord. You can join in on the conversation. Link is in the description. You get access to that Discord, the extra episodes, ad-free episodes of Gators Breakdown, GatorsBreakdown.com newsletter, all that good stuff. Link is in the description to join Gators Breakdown Plus. So, all right, let's get to it right quick. Before we, I'm sure a lot of you guys have already seen it, but we'll go through it. But we got to remember, a lot of this, or all of this, comes about because Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC and the conference expanding to now 16 teams. And as the SEC was trying to figure out how to move forward with scheduling the 2024 opponents, but hey, like I said, we've known about this since June. We've known the opponents, just didn't know when. Finally got the win tonight. So the schedule, of course, is only a one-year deal before it's different next season. In this one-year schedule, SEC teams will still play 8 conference games plus one required opponent from the ACC, Big 10, Big 12, or a major independent in the 2024 season. Moving forward, the conference will eliminate divisional standings, so no more East-West, of course. The SEC championship game will feature the top 2 teams in the SEC at the end of the regular season. SEC championship game is December 7th, 2024. All right, so without further ado, here is the Gators 2024 schedule. I put the regular season records up of the opponents. So you kind of get a feel. Look, we all know, we all follow the game. We know how tough it was going to be. But I put the regular season records up of the teams Florida plays. Now, I'm not worrying about bowl games, didn't worry about the conference championship games either. But we know who these teams are. And, of course, the big one, to start the season, in-state rival Miami comes to the Swamp, went 7-5 this past year. So first game in August 31st, we get that August start. Last time we played Miami, of course, was in Orlando. That was an August game, that week 0 game, of course. So matching back up against the Hurricanes, both coaches in their third year, Billy Napier, Mario Cristobal, they come to the Swamp to take on the Gators. And then the only layup Florida has on the season is the next week. Samford comes to the Swamp 9-7, September 7th. They went 6-5 this past year. But yeah, like I said, that's the only quote unquote cupcake. That's the easy game. So, if there are some easy games, yes, this is, or should be. So look at it that way. And then you get the third straight home game to kick the season off. Texas A&M, new coach Mike Elko comes into the Swamp. Went 7-5 this past year. Fired Jimbo Fisher. Mike Elko, of course, comes in and has to change. Sean Spencer, Gators defensive line coach from the past 2 years, will be on the sideline as well for the Aggies. They come to the Swamp as Florida plays Texas A&M again. So that is September 14th. And then the first road trip of the year September 21st at Mississippi State. So playing both new head coaches back-to-back. Jeff Lebby there at Mississippi State takes over. So you get two first-time head coaches back-to-back. Mike Elko and Texas A&M at home. The next week, September 21st, Mississippi State, the Bulldogs, come to the Swamp. Florida goes to Starkville to take on Mississippi State. They finished this past season 5-7. 2 bye weeks this year. The first one will be September 28th. 2 bye weeks for the 2024 schedule. And then Florida returns home for a game. Central Florida, UCF, comes to the Swamp 6-6 this past season. Of course, they'll be coming in trying to make a statement. Gus Malzahn leading the way there for UCF, their first year in the Big 12 this past year. So now, as a Big 12 member, will come to the Swamp on October the 5th. Then the Gators go on the road for the second time, October 12th at Tennessee. Tennessee finished 8-4. Florida with the big win over Tennessee, the best win of the season in the Swamp this past year. And, of course, Tennessee changing quarterbacks. Joe Milton on the way out. IM11 probably steps in there at quarterback for Tennessee. That one is on the road once again, October 12th. Then Florida returns home for what series, of course, they have struggled in recently. Kentucky, as we already sit here on this Wednesday, December 13th, we see they are hitting the transfer portal hard once again. So Kentucky will come to the Swamp October 19th. Of course, they finished 7-5 this past year, ran all over Florida, and will be Florida's home game after going on the road to Knoxville. And then another bye week. Of course, this one comes the week before Georgia. So like I said, the second bye week, of course, of the season comes right before Georgia. And Georgia sets up a brutal November for the Florida Gators. Of course, it's just hard enough. You have to play Georgia, one of the best teams in the country. Of course, undefeated this past year, go to the SEC championship game, get beat by Alabama for their first loss of the year. That is November 2nd. World's largest outdoor cocktail party. Georgia in Jacksonville. And then probably the highlight of the schedule, just because it changes, the reason all this is being done like this in the first place, Texas coming into the SEC. You go to Jacksonville, and then the week later, November 9th, go to Austin, take on the Texas Longhorns. Probably the highlight. I know many people already planning to go to that one, have been planning to go to that one. Quinn Ewers to be returning for Texas, a playoff team this year. 11-1 in the Big 12, their final season in the Big 12. Florida goes on the road November 9th to take on Texas. Then return home for 2 games. The first one being November 16th, LSU comes to the Swamp, 9-3 this past year. Jaden Daniels wins the Heisman. Of course, they got to replace him at the quarterback spot. But coming to the Swamp, Florida has not beaten LSU since 2018. That game also in the Swamp. Move forward one more week. Ole Miss comes to town November 23rd. A record of 10-2 this year. Of course, there are only 2 losses, not close, to Alabama and to Georgia. Jackson Dart returns. Lane Kiffin hit the transfer portal hard. They come to the Swamp to take on the Gators late in the season. And then, of course, the season ender on the road, November 30th at Florida State. Undefeated ACC champions left out of the college football playoff. Jordan Travis will not be a part of that team next year at the quarterback spot, so they'll be changing quarterbacks, losing some talent from this past year. We'll see how they address the transfer portal, but will still be part of a brutal November for the Gators. I mean, this is like one of those, and the game's coming back out this year, the video game, NCAA football, it'll be coming out in July. This is one of those schedules you make on that game. Now you don't even have to make it. You'll pop in the Dell, you'll download the game, you'll pop in the disc, you'll pull up the controller, and you'll get ready to play start a dynasty with Florida, and you don't even have to touch the schedule. If you want to get rid of Samford, I guess you can, but I mean, this is a schedule you would kind of build on a video game. And this is the schedule Florida finds themselves in right here in this 2024. It's brutal, guys. It is a tough schedule. One more time, quickly. Miami at home, Samford at home, Texas A&M at home, at Mississippi State on the road, then a bye week. UCF at home, go on the road to Tennessee after that, then Kentucky at home, bye week, and then the brutal November, once again, Georgia in Jacksonville, then at Texas, hosting LSU, hosting Ole Miss, and then on the road for the finale at Florida State. Brutal. That's about the best word for it, honestly. We didn't know how it was going to break out, of course. It's broken out in a way where there's a first half of a schedule and a second half of the schedule. And the first half is manageable. Second half, you better build some equity in that first half of the season. And we just saw what Florida did in November this past year. And even with a game that was supposed to be a layup in Arkansas. No, you don't get that. You don't get that here in this November stretch of 2024. And this schedule would be a lot more fun if Florida was, where we want this team to be. I mean, this would be a fun schedule, but now the blowback or the response that I've gotten, it's been blowback. It's been such a brutal schedule. I can't even enjoy it because look how we're not good. Look at who we got to play now. Kind of ruins the excitement of the schedule just because of the stature of Florida right now. And I get it. It's a very tough slate for a coach in Billy Napier that needs to show a lot of progress, and he's got to show a progress against that schedule. That's tough. That's I don't even man trying to dig out of a somewhat of a hole and trying to turn this thing around when you open up with Miami, Texas A&M a couple weeks later, and then that November. I mean, that's brutal. That's hard. That's a tough ask right there. But hey, it's year 3. You've built this team up to this point. You got to show progress. No matter what the schedule shows, no matter what these games right here show, got to show that progress. And that's going to be pretty tough. Pretty tough to do right here. But hey, we'll get into a little bit more talk. I'll get into some of your comments as well. But before we do, don't pass up a chance for easy cash this holiday season. Use MyBookie. MyBookie has the biggest online selection of odds and contests, so you can fill all your sports betting needs anytime, anywhere. You can turn that sports knowledge into cash in your wallet. Bet on the NFL, all these college bowl games coming up starting this weekend, or you can play for a share of big cash prizes in the weekly blackjack tournaments. If you've been waiting for the right time to get in on the action, well, that time is now. Make your winning move today. Sign up at MyBookie, use promo code Gators, and claim your deposit match, redeemable up to $1,000. Again, that is promo code Gators to claim your bonus. Experience the thrill of sports betting right from the comfort of your home. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. And it is the most wonderful time of the year, and you can make it more wonderful by using America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh, proud sponsors of Gators Breakdown. Your holiday shopping is made easier by, shopping online, so why not make your meal prep easier too this holiday season? Skip that extra grocery store trip and instead get fresh ingredients and delicious recipes delivered right to your door with HelloFresh. The most wonderful time of the year can also be the season of saving. Actually, save money this month with fresh recipes delivered cheaper than takeout. And with pre-portioned ingredients, you'll never waste money on excess food. And one of my favorites now, HelloFresh, has that breakfast and saves me so much time in the morning. That turkey, sausage, and cheese, egg bites, pop them in the microwave, and boom, tasty, fast, hot breakfast. Still looking for that different kind of gift this holiday season? Well, go to HelloFresh.com/GatorsFree and use code GatorsFree for free breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box while subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/GatorsFree with code GatorsFree. All right, let's get back into a little bit of schedule talk here. Only 4 true road games here for the Gators: at Mississippi State, at Tennessee, at Texas, at Florida State. So catch a little bit of a break there, of course. Not having to go out of the swamp too much, but just looking at it overall, that's just a sliver of positivity with the schedule and how it breaks out. But you can take a look at it, of course. I'll pull it up one more time. You can definitely see it is the first half and the second half. The best record in the first 7 games is a 8-4 Tennessee team you beat this past season. Miami 7-5, Samford 6-5, Texas A&M 7-5 this past season. Mississippi State 5-7 this past season. UCF 6-6, Tennessee 8-4. And Kentucky 7-5, of course. You're starting to back half of the schedule, but did beat Florida last year. And then if you just look at it, in that November, starting with Georgia, 12-0 Georgia, 11-1 Texas, 9-3 LSU, 10-2 Ole Miss, 12-0 Florida State. That's what those teams did this past year. That November run of Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and Florida State are 5 of the top 13 teams in the current college football playoff. You had Georgia, Texas, and FSU just a couple of weeks on that Sunday conversation of all making the college football playoff. That's how brutal this schedule is. And added up, those 5 teams only had 6 regular season losses between them. 1 less than Florida had by themselves. Florida 7 losses on the season. Those last 5 teams on the 2024 schedule had 6 by themselves. Florida had 7. That is no favors done. 2 years in a row in November, of course, but Florida didn't even take care of their own business this past November. So what you hope for is a lot of the steps forward, the development that's supposed to be there in year 3, guys that you've played a whole lot these past couple of years, got to pay off. A good start needs to pay off. You can build some momentum by beating Miami first game of the season. Texas A&M game 3, UCF later on. You got 2 in-state rivals right here with Miami and Central Florida. You can build some mojo there. Tennessee in that first half. You can build upon. You can build some equity, and you're going to need to build some equity. That last half of the schedule is brutal. It's hard. It's tough in every measurable. Now, maybe those teams can disappoint, but you're not going to bank on that. But face all Power 4 is the Power 4 now, not Power 5. State of Florida teams, Miami, Central Florida, Florida State. So Florida plays all of them. Can't play themselves, of course, but Miami, UCF now in the Big 12. Florida State in the ACC, Miami in the ACC. So only 4 power conferences now, and Florida plays all of the ones that are in the state of Florida. We need to take advantage. Early season run, got to do that. Especially just got this back-to-back games versus the first-year head coaches. Elko, A&M, a lot of talent at his disposal. Levy, Mississippi State probably has a lot to make up for. But tough schedule in the sense, there's only one cupcake. Florida's level of play pretty much has to be there week in and week out. I look at it this way: if every opponent Florida has on this schedule plays an average game, what does that mean for Florida? What does that look like in terms of difficulty if all those teams play an average game? You got to factor in how good you think Florida can be, will be, should be. But the schedule's harder because Florida doesn't look as strong. So if every opponent plays average, how hard does that make this Gator schedule look? Sure, you hope to catch one of these good teams on a bad day, catch some breaks, but you can't bank on that. So if Florida gets everyone's average game, how many wins does that equate to? There's only 2 games Florida can play a quote-unquote bad game and win. That's Samford and maybe Mississippi State. Maybe. And that's pushing it there against Mississippi State. That is a maybe. You can play a bad game and win that game. But besides that, Florida is going to have to either match every team to get a win, play their best while the other team plays average or a bad game. And that's kind of how I like to judge a schedule. If every team plays average, how do I think Florida plays against that if they're what we think they are? And makes for a very tough schedule here. Very tough. You're not catching a whole lot of breaks. You got to hope, hey, Georgia has a bad day, or Texas has a bad day, LSU has a bad day, Ole Miss, bad day, Florida State. Not many games that you can have a bad day and win. Florida's not that program right now. So Florida's going to have to play really good, average, above average, and hope that on that Saturday, that other team on the other sideline comes back to the pack. But is that really going to happen a whole lot when you start looking at this? I mean, it is week in, week out, no weeks off with the way the SEC is now constructed, the way you went out of conference and scheduled a Miami and scheduled Central Florida. Look, I'm all for the big games. Now, scheduling them all in one season doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, but that's the way they chose to do it. But not a big fan of that. But like I said, if Florida was what Georgia is right now, or Texas, or LSU, you'd be looking so forward to all these big games. And what a home schedule. I mean, if you got season tickets this year and you get to see Miami come to the Swamp, and UCF and Kentucky and LSU, Ole Miss come to the Swamp. But instead, I hear and see a lot of dread of, man, these are going to be losses. This November stinks, and in the season 0-5, and doesn't really break out all the way. It's very backloaded. It is really backloaded. Now we don't know. Things change. Happen. College football. I mean, is Georgia going to be? Georgia's going to be about the same level. Texas probably as well. They've built up to this point. LSU quarterback changed, Jaden Daniels out. So what do they look like? Ole Miss might even be better than they were this past year. Probably should be in a lot of ways. And then Florida State, how do they use the transfer portal once again? I don't think they'll be quite as good as they were this year. That's asking a lot. That's, I think, a little bit of detriment to this year's team and how good they probably were. FSU's not going to be as good, but that doesn't mean anything, for Florida. I mean, maybe you caught a break this year because Jordan Travis being out, but that doesn't mean you can just, Florida State's changing, roster change, quarterback change. That should be a win. No, there's not a should be win on here besides Samford. That's where Florida is right now. I'm not even counting Mississippi State as maybe looking as a should win. There's not another one. UCF probably put that one on there as well. Samford, bottom rung. Mississippi State, UCF, step above that. Everybody else, there's not a should win on there. So maybe 3 should wins, but I mean, Florida was 5-7. There are not many should be wins, even Mississippi State, even UCF. You can twist my arm and say, okay, they should be wins. Wait, for Florida, yeah, they should be. For this Florida, I can't say that. I can't confidently say that. I mean, right now, I'd pick Florida versus Mississippi State. I'd pick Florida versus UCF. But man, that can change. That can certainly change by the time we get to September 21st and October 5th. Just not many days you can have a bad game and expect to win. That's not where Florida is. Kind of excited, though, with Texas and Oklahoma coming in. Florida will have Texas this year one more time. That is November 9th at Texas. Should have Oklahoma next year. I believe the deal was you play Texas and Oklahoma, or Texas and Oklahoma have to play every SEC team in the first 2 years they're in the conference. So next year, Florida should get Oklahoma. And I would assume since Florida's at Texas this year, Oklahoma will probably come to the Swamp next year. Maybe I'm overthinking that. Maybe the SEC hasn't really decided that, but that would be my guess. I'm going to take a peek over here at the comments. JC, did I mess that up? That game's not in Starkville. Or is that what you're talking about? Did I mess that one up? It's got to be, right? Maybe you're talking about something else. I'll pull it up somewhere else just to make sure I put it right. Unless I'm I see everybody else putting the word brutal in there. I know I said it a whole lot. But yeah, it is at Mississippi State. So, okay, I'm sorry. I don't know where the not at. Okay, I see what you're saying. Now I see what you're saying. I came into the comment late. Don't play well there at Starkville. No, we don't. And man, Mississippi State, I mean, Florida's had some tough luck, even at home in the swamp. I remember, when was it, 2010? Yeah, it had to be 2010 because Florida's only loss was in '09, was in the championship game, SEC championship game. So yeah, so Dan Mullen comes into the swamp with Mississippi State, beats Urban Meyer in Florida. Yeah, Mississippi State's been pretty tough. What's the last time we've played there would be, what, 18? When Mullen is head coach, going there and getting Donovan Steiner getting the sack late in the game. But yeah, everybody, thanks for hopping in here. I know I wasn't sure when I was going to be able to go live here. Of course, the SEC Network had to kind of do their spiel, and then I put together most of the schedule myself by looking at other schedules that have been released for other teams and leaks for them. And then good shout out to All Gators, Fan Nation, the SI site there. Zach Goodall had put the schedule together, so I was able to figure in the last little 3 spots that I was still kind of waiting for. So able to get to you guys a bit earlier. JC says, "Oh man, I'm not seeing many wins if we play like we did this year." And that's the thing. I mean, if Florida is the same team we saw this past year or anything close to it, then you don't see much better than 5-7 with this schedule, and maybe even worse. Like I said, this is a brutal schedule. There's only one for sure win, and that is Samford. And then, like I said, should be wins: Mississippi State, UCF. Everything after that, there's no confidence that now Florida can beat a Tennessee, can beat a Kentucky, can beat a Texas A&M, but those are not should be wins. Not should be. All right. Sean Arnold says 5-7 might be a good year. If it wasn't for year 1 and year 2 under Billy Napier, yeah, look, 5-7 at Florida is no. I mean, that's not ever really good. Don't get me wrong. I get the kind of playful comments that we're doing here just because of how bad Florida has been. Because of how bad Florida has been, 5-7 with this schedule is certainly much better than 5-7 from what we just saw. But because there'll be maybe a couple of good wins in 5-7. But no, like I said, we got plenty of time to talk about this leading up to the season. But kind of while we're talking about the schedule, and I mean, look, this is year 3 for Billy Napier. This is kind of the way you chose to build the roster, going through the high school recruiting ranks, not hit the transfer portal hot and heavy the first couple of cycles. I mean, this is the way you build it. You build it to this point. We should start seeing the development take over right now. Now, it does stink that you lose some players like an ETN and a Human Mielin that you could have in your arsenal for a schedule like this. But you got one more chance to hit the transfer portal for some instant impact guys. A lot of youth has played the last couple of years. I mean, if it's going to pay off, it has to pay off in year 3. All this development, all these reps that these young guys have taken the last couple of years need to pay off. It is year 3. This is what you've built towards. You don't get more than year 3 that shows some heavy progress. And heavy progress is needed in year 3 for Billy Napier after going 6-7 and 5-7. Soldier Slim, hopefully still in here. Sorry, I came back to the comments kind of late. What game do you think will be homecoming? Oh, I don't know. Let's see. I could see. Will they do it as early as UCF? October 5th? I could see Kentucky or LSU to 16th. I think it'd be one of those 3 games: UCF, Kentucky, or LSU. Florida's had LSU for homecoming before, and also used to have those late season homecoming games. But those late season homecoming games used to be the cupcake before Florida State. But I don't know. UCF, Kentucky, or LSU. Of course, I think that's the easy route to go there. I don't think they'll host it early in the season as Texas A&M when they're on September 14th. So, yeah, UCF, Kentucky, or LSU. Probably Kentucky. Get right there, October 19th date. Okay, don't want to have too much silence here, Mr. Wiggs. What is our schedule ranked nationally? I'm not sure where it ranks nationally. It's got to be tops to me. I mean, my South Carolina buddy. I'll just read the text he sent me, of course, and just lets you know what they think outside of Florida. And this was before he didn't know Florida's last two games were going to be Ole Miss and Florida State. And he goes, Georgia, Texas, and LSU back to back to back brutal. And I thought all three straight of Ole Miss, Bama, and Oklahoma was rough. So this is coming from, hey, that's another thing about this 2024 schedule. I mentioned no divisions, but guys, there is no South Carolina. There's no Missouri. There's no Vanderbilt on the schedule. That's what we got to remember here. We don't have the traditional way we have watched SEC football since the early 90s. We don't have three teams besides Missouri who came in 2012. But from what we've been used to seeing, we don't have those teams anymore. Florida doesn't have they're not layups anymore, of course. But you'd rather have Missouri than Ole Miss this year. You'd rather have South Carolina than Texas. I'm just saying as far as difficulty goes. I mean, that's how different the schedule is this year. You don't have I don't even want to say breathers just because of where Florida is right now. None of those are. South Carolina's still a thorn in Florida's side, even though you got to win over them this past year. Last second win, of course. They beat Florida 2 years ago, have been competitive versus Florida. Missouri, we just saw what they did to Florida late in the season, but another heartbreaking loss there for Florida. Lost to Vanderbilt last year, so there's no pushovers, even with those three teams, but you'd rather have some combination of those three than what Florida has in November right now for 2024. Sorley says people are ignorant if you expect a huge turnaround with this schedule, year 3 or not. Don't be ignorant. Yeah, but I don't know how much that weighs in the whole Billy Napier has dug himself in now with the record the past 2 years. Some people will say, some people are going to hold it against no matter what because it's year 3. And, right or wrong, fair or unfair, it's kind of where it is right now. You could have had year 1 and year 2 to build a little bit of equity and get more of a pass for this season. But that didn't happen. So we automatically just have to pencil in, well, this schedule's hard, so you get another pass? That doesn't work at Florida. Now, I ain't saying go win, like you said, maybe huge turnaround. Man, Florida's not winning 10 games with this. They ain't winning 9 games with this. 8 wins with this schedule would be good. And certainly would earn Billy Napier another year. But the first 2 years was a chance to build some equity. Those games, the inexcusable games, the Vanderbilt game last year, the Arkansas game this past season, chances to build some equity in the season overall wasn't done. So now, right or wrong, fair or unfair, that makes this 2024 schedule even more important. But yeah, I'm sure there'll be some rankings coming out of here. I mean, you could already tell because of the opponents. We knew who the opponents were going to be. It's even harder now because of the way this November shakes out. But you'll probably be able to find some strength of schedule rankings coming out pretty soon for 2024. I can't imagine anybody having one harder. I can't. And this is not a bias. This is not an orange and blue glasses type of thing. Nobody would choose to play Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State 5 games in a row. Nobody would choose that. Nick Saban wouldn't choose that. Kirby Smart wouldn't choose that. Nobody would. Now, don't get me wrong, Florida didn't choose it either. It just got worked out that way. And there you go, JC. That's kind of it. You're adding excuse on top of excuse at this point. This year's excuse, the team was young. Next year's excuse will be brutal schedule. Okay, what the excuse will be in year 4? I'm sure somebody will find another excuse. And I ain't saying fire Billy Napier. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying year 3 is big. Year 3 is important, no matter how hard this 2024 schedule is. there has to be tangible signs of progress. And it's going to be tough. But they forgot. I see some familiar faces. Hadn't seen in quite a bit. Chris and JC and Harrison, what's up? George, hey George, what's up? We should win the bye week, so that's 2 wins right there, says Matt S. Go back to the bye weeks one more time. It is after Mississippi State. So Mississippi State, September 21st. Bye week, September 28th. And that is between Mississippi State and UCF. And then, of course, you get the bye week before Georgia. That is between Kentucky and Georgia. A lot of bye week jokes in there. There we go. Oh, man. It's a thin line. Chris does bring up a good point. How do you give a new coach a fair shot? Well, he's not new anymore. This would be year 3. How do you give a coach a fair shot? Like everyone want Florida to go 8-4, 9-3, but will Billy be judged fairly? I mean, if this thing is heading in the right direction, does that mean 8 wins? I can't answer that for you. What? Okay, maybe you guys can fire back in the comment section with this. If it's heading in the right direction, and I don't even know what that looks like to you, how many wins is this schedule? If it's heading in the right direction, what would you want to see? What would you want to see for tangible progress, tangible success? If it's heading in the right directions, how many wins does that mean to you? Yeah, Big Pizza Daddy, like I said, schedule hadn't come out yet of when you were going to play who. I mean, we've kind of known most of the schedule, but of course we didn't know where Ole Miss was going to be mostly, where LSU was going to be, Mississippi State, and Texas A&M. I believe were like the only 4 schools that we kind of left where that would be on the schedule. Gator fan Kavan, sorry, I'm not sure. I can easily see a 5-0 or 4-1 start if the offense and defensive lines are stable. I mean, you could see that. You absolutely could see that. I mean, what, 5-2 this past year going into Georgia game. I mean, so 5-0, 4-1's doable. Miami, Samford, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, UCF. 5-0, 4-1 are doable. Absolutely doable. I mean, throw Tennessee in there too. Like I said, it's the first 6 games. 4-2? Probably. Is that what you're probably looking at? But then the way it shakes out, 4-2 can easily turn into 5-7 again. Maybe one more win against Kentucky to get 5. And then you have that brutal 5-game stretch to end the season. It can play out a lot like this past year played out. It really can. And you follow that up, Gator fan. Kavan, sorry. Not as bad as the schedule as I first thought now looking at it. Yep, it is, like I said, it's split. First half, second half. So let me scroll to the bottom here. Q Lee. See him in here again as well. If it's not 9+ wins, Billy can hit the door. There are potentially 7 wins on the schedule if our offense and defensive lines are solid. That's it. I mean, it does start in the trenches probably. Mr. Bassman says, I agree with 9. Gabe says 7 or 8. Going to the question is, what does progress look like? Ryan Sardula says, I want 10. Well, I want that as well. Don't think we're getting it. Hey, man, you get 10 out of this. What a turnaround. What a job. Snack Burrito, 7-5 with clear and obvious improvements to the defense and play calling. Of course, we got to see how the schedule plays out, or how it plays out as well. How much time is maybe DJ Lagway getting? Is he like a Tim Tebow type where he's coming in and getting some snaps? How much do you use him? Are you competitive? I mean, I don't even want to go that far. I mean, if it's 0-5 at the end of the year, to end the season, but we were competitive versus Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and Florida State. Okay, what does that mean record wise? I think margin of loss ain't going to really get you a whole lot of love in year 3. Q Lee says 9 wins. Chad Snell, I'll probably agree with you a good bit right here, buddy. With the transfer portal and how other teams bring freshmen and still win, being young is an excuse for can't adapt to the times. Whew. Hard to disagree with a lot of that. Ryan Sedula, 8. Mr. Wiggs says 7 or 8. T-Mac, there we go. Winning every game at home. So let's take a look at that, because that would mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wins. If you win all the home games, and that would mean wins over Miami, Samford, Texas A&M, UCF, Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss. There'd be some good wins there. If those teams are very similar to what they were this past year, that would be some good wins there. Miami would probably be a pretty good win. We'll see what they do. They're hitting the transfer portal for a quarterback. We'll see what that means. It'd be maybe a new quarterback for them in game 1 of the season. A win over Ole Miss, I think, means a whole lot more now than it used to. Finally beating LSU would mean a whole lot. There'd be some good wins in a winning every game at home scenario. Snake Breeder brings up a good point and something we cannot overlook. The way this team has played on the road the past 2 years give me no confidence that we can just roll into Starkville and push them around. Hey, let's take a look at all the road games one more time, because, hey, yeah, that has been a point of contention with Billy Napier. At Mississippi State, at Tennessee, at Texas, at Florida State. Yeah, given what we've seen the last couple of years, why should we feel comfortable or confident in road wins? Chris Roswell says, this isn't your dad's Florida. We need to accept that we are what we are. Building is a process. When you have 12 true freshmen, kind of speaks for itself. Okay, well, where was the development from a lot of the guys that did have experience? That's a point of contention for me. Also, I'm not asking Billy Napier to be Steve Spurrier, Urban Meyer right now. I'm asking him to make a bowl game, not be 5-7, not be 6-7. I don't think most people are not asking Billy Napier to go out there and win an SEC championship game right now. But there needs to start being some signs of progress on the field. And then, of course, with the way recruiting might be finishing up, it only heightens the results are going to matter even more. So, yeah, I know Florida's not my dad's Gators. I know the Gators I grew up watching with and hoisting SEC championship trophies. I'm not asking them to be that right now. Savo Fleming, we got to catch a game next year, Dave. I'm out here in your neck of the woods. If you're in Jacksonville or I'm in Gainesville, hit me up. Got the tailgate going. This is a sobering thought and can happen. We could have 3 losses by the second bye week. Could have 3 losses by the first bye week. I hate to say that, but you could. Miami, Texas A&M, Mississippi State. That could be 3 losses before the first bye week. I wouldn't pick it, but it's possible. It's possible. Joseph Pisani says, can't imagine us winning more than 4 or 5. We'll be competitive in most games, but Billy finds a way to mess it up. I mean, that's another thing. If he is Still learning on the job somewhat in the SEC. Now, you'd hope there'd be a lot more that would bleed over from his time at Louisiana to what we see here in the SEC. But maybe he is still learning and piles all this together with young talent developing. Maybe he doesn't mess it up anymore. Kind of going to my next point that Big Pizza Daddy throw in. Thanks for the donation here. Record aside, no 13 or 10 players on the field, better clock management, make tackles, beat at least one rival. What we're looking for, no matter. And look, that's a good point. No matter the teams on this schedule, no matter what we see in November, can we see the things that just need to be better on the field? That might equate to an upset. That might equate to some more wins. Inexcusable penalties, the clock management, physicality in the tackles and in the trenches. Tennessee's the only rival you've beaten so far. One win out of Tennessee, Florida State, LSU, Georgia. Only one in 2 seasons. Q Lee, you go on this one almost every year, and the Miami game would tell us everything. And I forget who you've said that for with in the past, and I think sometimes it does go a long way in telling you what you need to know right here personally for you there. But yeah, that Miami game will probably tell us a whole lot, and I don't want to kiss away a season because of one game. And I won't, but you might be right. You know, we go back and look at it, maybe compile it all. Maybe that might, when we go back and look at it, you know, maybe kind of like this year, the Utah game, the first game of the season, in some ways did kind of tell us. You know, road issues were going to continue, penalty issues were going to continue. Maybe not being able to run the ball as good as you want to. That kind of bled over all year. No, not quite that bad. That was one of the worst performances of the season, was that first game of the season running the ball. But yeah, I mean, we won't know at the time. Q, I think you're saying you probably will. But yeah, I think the passing game took a big step from Utah to game 12 or game 11 when Mertz was the guy. Gator fan. Say it one more time. Kavan, sorry. I agree. There at least has to be some type of progress for me to feel great about Billy again. All right. Good stuff, guys. Thanks for hopping on here. Chris says, one more time. Honestly, I give Billy the benefit of the doubt because I am giving him the opportunity to fix and or address the excuses I see. Bad play calling, recruiting, developing penalties, hope. Chris, I was there. Right there. There was a lot of benefit of the doubt I was giving him in year 1 and year 2. I'm probably on board with you there too. Not now moving forward. This, you know, I'm at the threshold right now. That threshold's been passed. I got to start seeing some wins. Got to start seeing those things equate to wins. Yeah, Q said Kentucky 2022 and Utah this past year. That's where the games was going to tell him where this Florida team was. Joseph Pisani says, Dave, better hit the tailgating real hard to get through some of these home games. Woo, man. Tailgating is going to be good for Miami. And hey, it'll be good for Sanford too, guys. I'm telling you, it never lost a tailgate. That is the saying of Harmonic Woods. We've never lost a tailgate. So it doesn't matter who Florida plays. It doesn't matter what time the game is. Tailgating is there. So yeah, but tailgating from Miami and Texas A&M and UCF, Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss. Woo. Be some good tailgating scene right there in Gainesville. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for hopping on here. Looking at this 2024 schedule. Everybody hit that like button. I see you guys in there too, asking people to like it as well. Thanks for all that. Thanks for the support. And hey, we'll break this schedule down even more in the next coming months. Looking forward to this 2024 schedule. Of course, next week, early signing day. We'll have some episodes in between then as well. But of course, recruiting never stops. Got you covered right here on Gators Breakdown. That'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. I am your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thank you for joining me on this episode of Gators Breakdown.